And welcome back to episode number 42 and the final episode of season 1 of Raise the Banner podcast. Your co-host, as usual, with JR back in the building after about a month off. He's been busy living life, and then Benny Ballgame back here as usual, and myself, Macator. JR, how you been? Where have you been? What are you doing? How's life been?
For a good, almost 2 months straight, I've been working mostly nights at my job, so I haven't had the same availability as everybody else. So I've been, my schedule will be from, either between 12 and 2 till close at my store. So nights mostly.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, well, your sleep schedule gets fucked up when you're used to, waking up early as is because you used to work early in the mornings, and now you're working nights and your body still hasn't adapted to it. And I'm waking up at 5:30 in the morning still, up all day long. It sucks.
Yeah,
but yeah. I'm back.
I'm happy to have you back, Benny Ballgame. How you doing?
Good. It's hotter than Satan's asshole up here in the greater Boston metropolitan area.
It's hotter. It's hotter here than it is in Florida down with JR.
Yeah, we've had 3 straight days of mid 90s, humid, threat of thunderstorms, typical Florida weather this time of year. But we're getting the rain tomorrow, going to cool things off, supposed to get back down into the 70s. So I won't have to be cranking the AC, but glad I got it. But yeah, things are good. I coach a high school baseball team in the summer. We kicked the season off last night. So off and rolling.
Yeah, I heard you won a softball girls championship with your daughter. I saw.
I did. We were the worst team in the league, and apparently decided to save our best 2 games for the playoffs, and had our 2 highest scoring outputs all season. Collectively, we won our 2 games by a combined score of 33-13.
Wow, I personally think that is some coaching. But personally, from my sources, I heard it was primarily Mrs. Dearth.
That is correct. I do not speak 9-year-old girl. It's just not in my DNA.
All right. Let's get the ball rolling. It is June 20th. We've talked about the Boston Celtics and their playoff run for weeks now.
The playoff run is officially over.
Yeah, they are NBA champions. Apparently, we're not allowed to say world champions that I've seen online because world champions is reserved for the FIBA World Cup championship.
No, we're world champs. I'm taking it back.
Yeah.
The Celtics will wipe the floor with any of those.
The idea, the joke was world champ is the FIBA, and the leader of the FIBA World Cup is led by Chris Dunn, who is playing there because he can't make it in the NBA. So yeah. Anyway, so the Boston Red Sox. Oh, Boston! Wow. The Boston Celtics are NBA champions after what has been years of trying to get there, try to get over the hump. They finally did it. Jason Tatum had a little bit of a rocky playoffs overall and a little bit of a rocky finals, but he came out big in Game 5. Jaylen Brown won Finals MVP. Jrue Holiday played great. We obviously know what happened with Porzingis with his injury and stuff like that. White, Horford, Hauser, Pritchard, a little bit of Tillman, I guess. We kind of saw a little bit of everything. Listen, what's the thoughts? We'll start with you, JR. Boston Celtics champions. How you feeling?
Ooh, feels good to have a fucking championship back in the city of Boston. 5 years was long enough. 5-year drought felt like a fucking decade.
Unacceptable.
Fire up them duck boats tomorrow, man. Wish I could go to the parade, but no. I mean, it feels good, man. Honestly, at least one team that plays inside TD Garden knows how to win a championship. That's at least that's what I'll say. No, it feels good to see the Jays finally get their ring after 7 years of being a duo. Al Horford get his first ring after 18 years in the NBA. Wait, 17? I think he's won the year 18, but 17 or 18 years in the NBA. Derek White after having a down 2022 and coming to Boston and being part of this core, and then getting Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis in the summer, it elevated this team. Like Wick said that they didn't want to run this back before the season began, and they had to do something. They didn't know what exactly, but Martin getting rid of Time Lord, it sucked at first, but when you realize that they upgraded in the end, it's worth it for what they did.
Yeah, Ben. How about
Also,
you?
I'm not a Marcus Smart fan, so I was happy to see them not.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, obviously super excited. They ended the sports drought, the depressing sports drought of like 1900 days or whatever it was. JR mentioned it. The Pats won Super Bowl 53 February 3rd, I believe was the date, 2019. On the heels of a Red Sox championship. The drought lasted a grand total of about 92 days back then. But yeah, I mean, this is certainly a long time coming. A lot of the top talented guys in the NBA didn't win their first titles until the age these guys are now. Obviously talking about Brown and Tatum. What I would say was impressive. I thought they won different ways, maybe not necessarily all postseason long, but if you look at, the Heat series, the Cavs series, and the Pacers series, they won most of those games with dominating offensive outputs. I'd have to go back and look at the raw numbers. They averaged, I think, 120 points a game in the regular season, and they were kind of right around that mark for the first 3 rounds of the playoffs. But, I mean, outside of Game 4, the Celtics didn't give up more than 100 points in the NBA Finals, which is, by today's standards, an exceptional defensive showing. If you don't score 100 points, that's pretty bad. I remember.
No, they gave up 100 Game 4 to the Mavs.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Outside of Game 4, they didn't give up 100 points. 89, 98, 99, and then 88 in Game 5. So they won it differently in the finals than they did in the first 3 series, which was nice to see. I think it goes to show the diversity in how they win. Granted, it is different. They didn't have Porzingis for the vast majority of the East playoff run, and that completely changed. We saw that immediately in Game 1 when he came off the bench. He had 18 first half points, what felt like 12 blocks. It wasn't that many, but it certainly felt like it. He obviously made his presence felt, but I mean, happy for these guys. No one more deserving than Al Horford. He put in 186 games, second longest streak of all time without a title. Karl Malone's record still stands. Obviously, it'll never fall because he's long been retired. 193 games, I think, is the record. So it's nice to see Al finally get a title. Supposedly he wants to come back. If you had asked me a month ago, 2 months ago when the playoff run started, if Al Horford would have retired if they won it all, I'd say I would have bet money on that. But I guess he wants to come back. So I'll be curious to see what they do in the offseason because Derek White's owed a pretty sizable contract. I think the projected deal is like 4 years, $126 million. And then, of course, there's the Supermax looming with Jason Tatum. But yeah, I mean, obviously, good to have a title back in Boston. They dominated, you could argue one of, if not the most dominating postseason runs maybe of all time. I would say, one of the great Celtics teams of all time, which is nice to say. I feel like, in today's day and age, it's hero ball. It's superstar led. And this was clearly not that. Not that Jaylen Brown's not a superstar. But if you want to talk about raw talent, he's not the best player on this team. He played like it in the East Finals and the Finals. But, they played team basketball, which is more than you can say for really anybody else. I mean, the Cavs couldn't do much when Mitchell went down. The Heat were nothing without Butler. The Pacers weren't much of anything without Halliburton. So, it's nice that, the Celtics had the luxury of, Porzingis goes down. They still got 2 other guys. But it was nice to see them play team basketball, and they're betting favorites to win it all again next year for good reason. And be curious to see how the offseason unfolds. But long time coming. They dominated, and they deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, I won, I think in total like $400-$500 from all the bets I did for the futures, but the one specific I had put back in October for them to win it, I won like $150. I immediately took 100 of that and put it back on them to win it next year at plus 300. So they are logically favorites to win it all, but I mean in terms of this championship, yeah, I mean you guys kind of hit it on the head. I mean they were the best team from day one. They were the best team from opening night through the regular season. I mean, I think they won the East by 14 or 15 games.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I love the people that want to come in and say, the Celtics had an easy road. The Celtics didn't play anyone big, blah, 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 blah. My response to that is pretty simple, and it's, were any of them beating the Celtics when they were healthy? Would you have bet on any team in the East to beat the Celtics when both teams were healthy? The answer is no. Yeah, the answer is no. So you could have put a healthy Miami in the mix, and the Celtics were still going to beat them. You could have put the healthy Bucks, I guess, against the Celtics, or you could have put a completely healthy
Knicks.
Cavaliers team. They were up 2-1 versus Cleveland when Mitchell went down. I know what's his face? Allen was hurt in Cleveland. Again, like the Celtics weren't losing to Cleveland.
No.
And then Porzingis went down. Like this team with Porzingis, without Porzingis, they basically won the championship. With Porzingis, they are so far and away the best team in basketball. So like the Pacers series, I don't even want to hear any talk about any of that. And then same thing with Dallas. Like they faced a healthy Dallas team, and outside of Game 4, where it kind of almost a little bit kind of made it seem like they purposely lost. I'm not going to go claim that they did, but it was suspicious Game 4 type of situation. And they brought it back to Game 5, and it blew their doors out. Back to what you were talking about to the Jays, like they got it done. And the reality is people will try to tear them down and tear down the title. But in 5, 10, 15 years, no one's going to be talking about, oh, they had an easy run, blah, 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 blah. The Denver Nuggets championship just last year was incredibly easy. They played the 8 seed Miami in the finals. They faced like the 4, 5, and 7 seed or something like that in the playoffs. They had an incredibly easy run. So the problem is the Celtics were just significantly better than every other team, and people don't want to acknowledge that. And the people that were wrong, I think you guys both saw the predictions, right, heading into the finals of Mavs and then the famous Nick Wright Mavs in 5. That was relatively wrong, I would say.
Oh,
yeah. Jason Tatum since he was drafted.
Yeah, exactly. And the media will try to cope and redirect the storylines however you want to put it. But here's where it comes down to: Jason Tatum's got his title. Was he spectacular overall in the finals? No. I think he was decent to solid through 3 or 4 games, and he had a very good Game 5.
He closed Game 5 out.
So overall, I think he was good in Game 5. But he got his title. Like that's what it comes down to. And then most importantly, because I've been a vocal supporter of his game, but Jaylen Brown got his money, took heavy scrutiny from Boston and everybody else that he's not worth the money. He went out and had, in my opinion, just as good, if not better, of a season than his All-NBA second team that he had the previous year. His numbers were down a little bit because of them adding Holiday and Porzingis to the mix, but he was still spectacular. He was efficient. He was very good. And most importantly, when it mattered most, he showed up continuously.
I'll say this, just not to cut you off. I remember at the very beginning when we started this show, I said, like, I wasn't really a fan of giving him that contract because of numerous things. But I also said, like, if he goes out and they win a championship this year or within some time of that contract, that I'm a man of my word and I would never say another bad thing about Jaylen Brown. I'm a man of my word. I'm never going to say another negative thing about Jaylen Brown because he put his money where his mouth. He put the money where his mouth is, and he won a championship.
Yeah, I
he
mean,
won the Eastern Conference MVP and the Finals MVP. I mean, there's not really much more I can say.
PG-13 airs on, but he put his dong on the table and showed what he has to, what he can bring to the table. He was great in the Eastern Conference Finals, and going into Game 5, he was the clear-cut favorite to win the Finals MVP. Tatum closed the door a little bit because he had a better Game 5 than Jaylen Brown, but overall, Jaylen Brown was spectacular. He had two of the biggest plays in the series. He was consistent. Everyone played like shit Game 4, so I'm not even, gonna comment on Game 4. But Game 1 through 3 and Game 5, he was good, and he shut everybody up. He shut everybody up, except there's a select few that will hold on to the grudge that I can think of personally, but he showed the hell up. So I'm thrilled for them. You saw, I think we all saw the genuine relief from the Jays. They won their title, so obviously they're excited. But we live in an era where social media is huge, and they hear everything. And you could sense the overwhelming relief, especially on Tatum's end, of just like, we did it. Like we finally
What they gonna say now? What they gonna say now?
Yeah, and
Tatum and Jalen said, like, well, what are they gonna say now, man?
Yeah, and then
they won a championship. What can they say?
Yeah, and Tatum, like, he did a couple cliche comments and like repeating old things, like he's yelled, "We did it," kind of like not mocking, but remaking Kevin Garnett's "Anything's Possible" comment.
Well, if you watch the whole video, just not that clip, he doesn't really seem like he's trying to mock it. It's just you're in shock.
I don't want to say mocking it.
Championship.
Yeah, like, I don't want to say mocking it. It just, I don't know. It was, when he did it, you were like, okay, that's a little bit of like just like.
Well, he was saying that when Deuce ran up to him and everything like that, and when his mom came up.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, being overcome with emotion.
Yeah, I'm not making a big deal out of it. Like people.
No, but Nick Wright and them all do. Like, he's trying to be like Kevin Garnett. He's trying to be like Kobe.
Yeah,
and then the picture of him holding the trophy in the locker room, they're all trying to.
Oh, that's bullshit. Like, yeah, that's just people fishing for an issue. The only other thing that was like kind of similar was oh god, I'm having a mind blank what it was. Oh, it was in the after party where he quoted Kanye. And he
Kanye's
was like,
my favorite rapper, so I have zero issue with that.
People were like, they wanted to know what would happen if we didn't win, and I guess we'll never know. Like, it's a little gimmicky, but like, dude, he did it. So like, you could bitch all you want, like you can try to push the envelope and nitpick and cry about all different things, but the matter of fact is he did it, and they're not going away. They're going to be here for the next, I would say, minimum 2 more years. Argue up to maybe 3 or 4 more years of this, I think, core. And by core, I mean, the top 5, not including Horford. I think Horford's got, I guess, 1 more year, maybe.
Vic said he's coming back for 1 more year.
Yeah, so he did it. So, the props off to Tatum, props off to Jaylen Brown. Porzingis finally got his ring. Horford finally, broke through, finally got his ring.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said from day one, like, I'm a Jaylen Brown stan, but like Horford is, out of all of them, like the guy you really kind of want to win it for because he deserved it. You know, the legacy. I think and I guess that's where we could transition into it. Is this make Horford a Hall of Famer? Was he before that? Does this cement his legacy? Does it put him in? Where do you guys stand on that?
I mean, I'd have to do kind of a deep dive into Horford to understand like where does his career stack up historically in terms of statistics, longevity. I mean, if you look at just from a pure numbers standpoint, like his overall body of work, you look at the numbers and they don't scream like Hall of Fame to me because he was never a dominant offensive player. He had good seasons, but he was never a dominant offensive player.
Dominant player in general.
Well, also
I mean, arguably his best season was like, I think he averaged a double-double in his last season in Atlanta. And it's maybe not his last season, close to his last season in Atlanta. And I think that was the only time he ever averaged a double-double. It was, so I'm looking at it here. So it was it was the 2012-2013 season. So he still had 3 more years after that before he came to Boston in 2016. But in 74 games, averaging just over 37 minutes a game, he averaged 17 points on 54% shooting and 10 boards a game. And he shot 50% from 3. I don't know what his numbers were, but he was 50% from deep, which is pretty damn good for a guy who's a center.
He has probably the weirdest shooting mechanic in the league.
Yeah. So,
hey, before Horford came to Boston, he wasn't that much of a 3-point shooter.
No, like I said, I'd have to do a deeper dive into the stats to really see. I mean, career-wise, he's a 13.8 rebound, 3 assist guy, shooting 51%. Career from 3, he's call it 38%. Decent free throw shooter. So, and I mean, and he's got the title, but like, I'd have to do a deeper dive to see, is he really a Hall of Famer? I mean, I think that there's a case to be made. He had a handful of injury-ridden seasons. He played 11 games in 2011, 29 games in 2013, 28 games in 2020, only played 33. Well, he started 33 games this year. So, obviously, this was the first time he was really coming off the bench because they had Porzingis. So Horford didn't really need to start, but played 65 games this year. I mean, I think there's a case to be made, but it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't get in either.
Also, remember, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame, not the NBA Hall of Fame. So his college resume will also
fair. Yeah, and
he has back-to-back national titles.
Yeah, he's a 2-time national championship winner at Florida. That's right. I forgot that the college stats count. And he was a pretty dominant college player outside of the fact that he was a 2-time national champion. I mean, by college standards, he was pretty good. He was, as a senior, no, he didn't do a senior year. So as a sophomore, the first year they won, in 26 minutes a game, he was 11 points, almost 8 boards, followed it up by 13 points, almost 10 boards a game. Which again, by college standards, are pretty good. And he averaged 1/10 of a 3-point attempt and did not make a single 3 while he was a Gator. So, I mean, if his college stats are going to count, I would say probably, because he's an NBA champ and he was a 2-time national champion at Florida. So thanks for pointing that out. I forgot that the college stats mattered because it's the Basketball Hall of Fame, not the NBA Hall of Fame. So, I would say probably, but again, I wouldn't be stunned if they don't vote him in.
Personally, I think, bias aside, I think he's like 85% like lock for it. But if the Celtics go back to back, I think you put him in no matter what.
Yeah, if he wins the second title, I mean, because you can assume he probably only gives us one more season, right? So, I mean, I would assume, if they win a second title, then he'd have to go into the Hall of Fame, given his longevity, multiple
Jrue Holiday as
championships.
well. I think Jrue is a lock for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, right now I would say Horford is. Problem is he was never elite, and that's where it's a little hairy. But he was really good. He's been really good, or at least good for what has been 15 years now. He now has the NBA title. He's obviously a phenomenal leader, and as you said, he has 2 national titles under his belt in college. But I don't know if I would. I have a hard time putting Al in the Hall of Fame, just because I don't know if he makes it up to that level of player.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I mean, if you're gonna, here's the case for him. So I just looked up an article talking about things that would work in his favor as a for a Hall of Fame resume. So it says the case for Horford is that he's a 5-time All-Star. He was NBA third team All NBA in 2010, and then he was a second team All NBA defensive selection in 2017, 2018. Widely respected, and he's been to including this season, he's been to the playoffs 15 times. Plus, obviously, you add in the college stuff. But you already kind of hit the nail on the head. The biggest knock on him is that he was never an elite player in the pros. And I don't really think he was really an elite player in college. That team was really run by Joakim Noah. They had a couple other guys. Corey Brewer was on those teams. So they had other guys. That was a total team effort. Al Horford's always been a well-respected guy. But that's the thing, is that he's never been elite. His career averages 13 points, 8 rebounds, and just over a block a game. And it says he never averaged more than 18.5 points per game, and only tallied double-digit rebounds per game once, which I mentioned before, was that he averaged, it was 17 and 10 for an entire season. So, it's really going to boil down to, how much never being an elite player weighs him down compared to, I don't really put a ton of stock in being an NBA All-Star. It's a massive popularity contest. But if you're All NBA, he's been All NBA third team one time, and at the latter part of his career, 6-7 years ago. Granted he was 30, but if he was an All NBA defensive player, when he was 30, that's pretty good. And he's again college and pro title, pro champion. So, I would say maybe a little bit more than 50-50, but like JR said, if they go back to back, then I think that it's is he a slam dunk? No, but I'd be really hard pressed at that point to think he doesn't get in.
Yeah, and JR bringing up Jrue. Drew's an interesting, guy to consider. He's been around the block. He's now got 2 championships at 2 different places that he played. Jrue was arguably the second best, if not the third best player in the finals for the Celtics. He played a big role in the Milwaukee finals, of course. He has a little bit of a shaky kind of playoff performance reputation altogether, but he's got two finals now, 2 championships. He was a phenomenal defender his entire career. He's been a good player his entire career.
He's been either first or second team All NBA defense 6 out of the last 7 years.
Yeah, and so you could argue that Jrue has a better case than Al.
Not to mention,
I would probably say that he does have a better case than Al. He's got 2 championships. He still put up the points. He was a better defender overall. I don't know. I just still have a hard time putting Jrue in there. I don't know. The blind threshold that you have in your brain of is that guy a Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
My gut says no for both. Like you said, maybe if we look into it a little bit deeper, I would change my mind, but my gut says no on both.
Yeah, that blind threshold is you look at and you watch Al Horford play and you're like, is that guy a Hall of Famer? And it's he doesn't look like it. Obviously I know this is a horrendous comparison, but if you look at LeBron 10, 12 years ago, you were like, he looks like a Hall of Famer. He plays like a Hall of Famer. He dominates the league. And at that point, I'm trying to think. If you go back to 2013, was 2013 his first title in Miami? Ish was roughly 10 years. It was roughly 10 years ago. So
yeah, I think it was 2012, 2013.
So, so he wins whatever it was, 2 out of 4 with Miami before he went back to Cleveland. So he looked like a guy that belonged in the Hall of Fame, which is like, it's a weird thing to say, but like Al just doesn't, his style, the way that he plays doesn't match like Matt said, the blind image, the blind threshold you have in your head of like what an NBA Hall of Famer looks and
James. So.
Yeah, but so the NBA, like, it's easier to have that blind threshold. Like football, like Tom Brady doesn't look like he would be a Hall of Famer, but he obviously is. He's
No, I wasn't saying like, I meant like Tom Brady played like a Hall of Famer.
Yes, yeah. But what I'm saying is, like, in the NBA, you kind of can get more of that gauge just by watching the player play day to day.
Yeah.
Talent wise, ability wise, like Jokic is going to be a Hall of Famer. Like, the dude's got 3 straight MVPs in the finals. Like, Giannis and KD. Like, these guys are going to be Hall of Famers.
Jokic might not even show up for his Hall of Fame ceremony.
Yeah, he might just say, "Yeah, I'll give it to me. I'll get the plaque later on.
I'll do a speech and send it in."
Yeah, a pre-recorded speech. So I don't know. I struggle to give that reign to Jrue and Al. But hey, I mean, they're both going to end up with 2 great careers. Drew's cashing in now, obviously in Boston for one more big deal, and good for him. It's a little steep, but we'll see how it plays out as he gets into his.
You do what you got to do to keep the band together to try to maximize your winning window.
Yeah. And the one other Celtics topic I wanted to have tonight, before we transition, is I heard it on good old 98.5, the 2 to 6 show of good old Felger and Maz. They were talking about, like, basically the credit that Mazzulla deserves or not. My question is, what do you think his performance was this year and in the playoffs, and how much credit do you give him personally for the title?
I give him a lot of credit. I mean, after the whole entire Ime thing, and then what happened last year in the Miami series, people are like, "Oh, is he the coach? Is he the right coach?" Yes, Brad went out and got KP and got Jrue, but he maximized the team to their full potential. And all the players have bought into him and his system. Like everybody said, is Joe Mazzulla ball. You know what I mean? Like, and if
they changed things up from Ime's time.
Yeah. For me, I'm a little bit harsher. Harsh isn't the right word. I think there's components where Mazzulla deserves credit. When to sub guys in and out, when to call timeouts to stop momentum or to try to change momentum. That's understanding game flow. Mazzulla is not an X's and O's guy at all, which is, he's not alone in that. I mean, realistically, like off the top of my head, again, this is just off the cuff. There's no backing to this whatsoever. I would imagine that Eric Spoelstra is probably the only coach in the NBA who consistently draws up ways for his team to run their offense. Obviously, there's an offensive system that the Celtics run. Every team has their own offense, right? But when it's crunch time and they're sitting on the sideline and they're talking it up, like Mazzulla's not sitting there with a clipboard and a dry erase marker being like, okay, like, Porzingis is going to take the ball side out. We're going to run, a back screen at the elbow for to send Tatum to the hoop. If he's covered, Jalen's going to pop out off the elbow beyond the 3-point line. Like, and Jrue Holiday's like our last, like he's just gonna run into the backcourt just in case. Like they have preset plays, but he's not over there like X's and O's game planning it up. But that, again, that's not like a Mazzulla. That's not a knock on Mazzulla in the sense of like he's alone in the sense of he's the only guy that doesn't do X's and O's. It's more the way the modern NBA coaching works is you have an offensive system and you let your stars run the offense. But I mean, to go with a super cliche, and I'm going to paraphrase Belichick here. It's something to the effect of like players win games, coaches lose them. And so I feel like you have to give Mazzulla some credit, but especially in the NBA, it's such a player-driven league that it's like, could somebody else have coached the Boston Celtics to an NBA championship this year? And for I think you could put, like, could Doc Rivers have led this team to an NBA championship? Probably. Like, could Frank Vogel have led this team to a championship? Maybe. Like, I think that there's a longish, medium-ish, long list of guys who could have led this team to a title solely based on the fact that they were so much more talented than anybody else. I think one of the reasons that that Spoelstra gets a ton of credit for being as good a coach as he is you could argue that since the big three of 10 years ago broke up, that Jimmy Butler has probably been the best player he's coached since then. And Jimmy Butler is not like really a superstar. He's top 20 player in the NBA, right? You could make that distinction. He's probably a top 20 NBA player. Mm-hmm. I would say he's not to the Jaylen Brown level. I think Jaylen Brown is a fringe top 10 NBA player, probably closer to 15. But I think that on talent alone, I think a lot of guys would have coached this team to a title. Not to take away from Mazzulla. Obviously, it takes the right guy to push the right buttons and make the right decisions, and understand game flow. But like, I give him some credit, but like, I don't look at this and say like, what a masterclass coaching job by Joe Mazzulla that the list of guys who would have won here is short.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of I'm probably closer towards you, Ben, is in the sense that I don't give him a ton of credit. Like, oh God, Mazzulla like won them that championship. I think that he did improve from year 1 to year 2. I agree with JR that they bought into him as a coach and they believe in him and as a coach and as a leader. I think he did a solid job. That being said, there's no doubt that this was just talent overload on this team. And I think that other coaches could have led them to a title too. So, I'm not going to give him a ton of credit, but I think he had a pretty good second year. He made adjustments. He improved. And, obviously he's not getting fired after an NBA championship, but like, I feel confident of his ability to coach this team going forward and lead them in the right direction. Like I said, he made a lot of improvements this year that I like to see of how he handled the rotation, how he handled the players, how he handled timeouts. I know in year 1 he was bold with his lack of timeouts at times. But yeah, I mean, middle of the pack, he gets some credit, but I brought it up because 98.5 were basically saying he deserves no credit. And actually, Felger even went on to kind of basically say his mindset of basketball is wrong. The whole 3-point, whoever takes the most threes wins the game statistically. Statistically, I think that might be true, but that's a discussion. But all right, yeah.
Felger and Maz are literally just engagement farmers on radio.
Dude, it's miserable. It's miserable. It's everything. Like, they have a negative twist to everything they say, but I don't want to get too far into them. But I do want to transition to let's do a quick little Bruin segment because I just want to get your thoughts, JR. Obviously, the off season is here for close to officially here for the NBA for the NHL. I know we got Game 6 of the Cup Finals tonight. It's tonight, right? Yeah.
Let's go Edmonton.
Yeah, go Edmonton. But the main rumor around Boston right now is Ullmark going to be traded? I know you've heard a little bit here and there about it. What are your overall thoughts, and what do you want to see the Bruins do with Linus Ullmark?
Well, from things I've heard and read and seen and have been told, it's going to be a unique situation. There's a couple teams that are in the market for a goalie at the moment. You can cross LA off after trading Pierre-Luc Dubois for Darcy Kemper. You can cross the Devils off for trading for Jacob Markstrom. So you're looking at the Detroit Red Wings. Depends on what happens this Cup Finals. Maybe the Edmonton Oilers, depending on how Stuart Skinner plays tonight, if they lose, or if he just goes on an absolute tear and forces a Game 7. So the Oilers could be one, but the one team I keep hearing is the Ottawa Senators. They have a trade in place, a framework of a trade, I should say, with the Philadelphia Flyers that's revolving around the number 7 pick in the draft this year. I can only assume that potentially that has something to do with the Bruins as well, because if anybody read the Dave Pagnotta article that came out today, the Senators were pushing hard for him at the deadline. They were on his no trade list, because he has a list of 14 teams that he can automatically say no to. I just gotta wonder, Pagnotta said that he'd be willing to waive his no trade for Ottawa. I'm guessing is probably because they'd be willing to give him an extension and a raise. So you're thinking like an extension of maybe between 4 years to 7 years. They can't give him any more than 7 because they're not the team that has rights. So actually, they probably could give him 8 years, but I think he has to be traded before the July 1st deadline because free agency opens on July 1st. So anything before July 1st, you'll have the rights to the player, so you can potentially sign them to an 8-year deal. But anything after July 1st, it's automatically a 7-year deal, unless it's a sign and trade. But I'd assume it's going to be Ottawa. I'd assume that it's probably going to be a pretty hefty return. Markstrom went for a first and a depth defenseman. So Ullmark's 4 years younger than Jacob Markstrom. Linus Ullmark has a higher save percentage, and he has a Vezina trophy, which Jacob Markstrom doesn't have. So I think the return is going to be a pretty hefty amount higher than what the Devils got. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy, like super crazy, like something that'll blow you out of the water. But I do expect a first-round pick to come back to Boston, whether it being the pick they get from Philly or our 24 first that Detroit sent them for Alex DeBrincat last offseason. It was the pick that we sent to Detroit for Tyler Bertuzzi at the trade deadline last year. So I'm either expecting it to be that pick or the pick they get from Philly, either a player like Josh Norris or Shane Pinto. Both of them are centers. Josh Norris is more like his peak is more like a second line center, and then Shane Pinto is going to be like your more like cream of the crop. Like his peak is a first line center. He's only 22 years old, but he's damn good at what he does, and he's a really good player. So I'd assume it'd be like one of those players. One of the rumors was Jacob Chikrin, but it just wouldn't make sense because we have 4 left shot defensemen under contract already. But possibly maybe they get something from Philly. Maybe they flip what they get from Philly. Travis Konechny would be nice. I saw
someone posting that they want Kachuk from the Senators. I forget his first name.
Ottawa's not going to move Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know not a ton about hockey, but I was looking up his numbers and stuff like that. I was like, that seems like a pretty big ask.
I mean, it would be fun to get the two brothers as rivals, because I mean, the Senators and the Panthers aren't rivals. So I mean, it would be cool to have Brady in Boston, because I mean, both of them went to college in Boston. So, and their dad is from Boston. So it would be cool to get them here, or one of them here. But I think it'll be, even though like my friend, one of my good friends, he's from the Ottawa area. He's a big Senators fan. Shout out, Mike. He was saying that they probably won't move Pinto. But I told him, I said, considering that Ottawa is going after Ullmark that heavy, it's going to be I'm expecting a big return, because like if you want Linus Ullmark, who is willing to move his no trade to come to Ottawa, Don Sweeney's going to get as much out of you as he can. And if he's getting stuff from Ottawa, Shane Pinto is going to be like the top target, because we need a number one center. And the rumors are going around that Boston's going to be really aggressive around Elias Lindholm come this free agency, because it looks like he's going to market, because Vancouver just signed Philip Hronik to a 8-year deal with an annual average of $7.5 million. So there's money that could have gone to Elias Lindholm. It looks like he's going to hit market. My only thing with him is he's 29 years old. He's going into his age 30 season. He's kind of falling off a cliff. Even with Vancouver, he still wasn't producing. I mean, he was one of their better players this playoffs, but even at that, he still wasn't producing at the level he was when he was in Calgary, playing with Matthew Tkachuk, Johnny Gaudreau, Andrew Mangiapane. So I don't think Boston really should give him more than $5 to $6 million, and I don't think they should give him more than 3 years, because, like I said, like unless he has like a complete career revival playing with David Pastrnak, I don't see the point in giving him a good amount of years in term and annual average. The player that I really want the Bruins to target, he's a winger. He plays for the Carolina Hurricanes. He's an RFA. His name is Martin Necas. He just won the World Championship with Pasta in Prague. They are friends and they have chemistry, because they both played on the same line together in that series, or on that team. So I would be interested in trading for him. Marty's like 23, 24 years old. He's really young, and he's a really good winger. And Carolina probably isn't going to be able to retain him, because they're going to hand out a big contract to Seth Jarvis.
Yeah. We'll obviously see what happens over the next I think we could see something within the next week or two.
It's good. It's more than likely Linus Ullmark's going to have a new home within the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. And I think he'll be elsewhere. Ottawa seems like the most likely fit, but we'll
Carolina, they could move him to Carolina and get Necas his rights in that deal. They could potentially get a first-round pick and Necas' rights in that deal.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. So we'll see where he plays out. But I want to finish this up with some Boston Red Sox. They are, I think it's 35-30. Is that correct? They're 35-30, I believe. They have won 5 straight. They have taken series from the Phillies, from the Yankees, and now they just swept the Blue Jays. They're off tonight.
They're 40-35.
40-30. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what it is. The 35, I wasn't sure which way it was. 40-35. They're 1 game out of the wild card. Where are you guys at with all this? I mean, they're definitely playing, I think, a little bit above overall expectations. How are you feeling about this team for the rest of the year? Just overall, where are your brains at with the Boston Red Sox?
I mean, they're certainly, like you just said, they're overperforming to a certain degree. I'll be curious to see the trade deadline's a month away. Given the mood of ownership, I don't really expect them to do a ton at the deadline. you might see a little bit more of the same, like what you saw with Bloom, addition by subtraction, subtraction by addition, that kind of thing. Sell here, buy there, kind of ride the fence. I don't really expect them to make some big flashy move. That's just not really their MO anymore. I think that they're perfectly happy just to kind of let this thing ride out, because they're planning on competing next year and the year after. And so I don't think that they're going to make some big flashy move and mortgage anything that they've been, kind of holding on to for the last handful of years. So, we'll see what happens in, 5 or 6 weeks. But, I think that, the Red Sox are just as likely to lose, 5 in a row or 6 out of 8 after winning 5 in a row. That's just, they're just kind of, they're up and down. That's kind of what they've done. They've been a little bit above 500, then they fall back down. A little bit below 500, climb their way back up. I think they have, a decent, core of young guys. I think they look at, getting Tristan Casas back, back and healthy as a, we're acquiring a player without having to acquire a player type of situation. So, we'll see if they make any moves. I don't expect anything crazy. They could certainly, I think there's no such thing as too much pitching, especially too much good pitching. So if somebody's available for the right price, that doesn't really require them giving up a ton. Maybe we'll see a smaller move like that. I think that, I was pretty down on them in the offseason. I think what Andrew Bailey and Breslow have really instilled in the franchise in terms of their pitching philosophy, pitching objectives has paid off dividends a lot more than I thought they would. They've really changed their approach to be a little bit smarter about what a hitters like to hit and just don't throw that. As stupid as that sounds, hitters hit fastballs better than they hit anything else. So we're going to throw 60%, 70% breaking ball and off speed, 30 to 40%
wild change,
fast.
but
it's working, right? Like, there's been this push for velo, and Aroldis Chapman burst on the scene 10 years ago throwing 105 miles an hour. Still throws gas, but like every guy that gets rolled out is throwing 97 to 101 with nasty breaking balls that I feel like every year they come up with a new name. I feel like this is kind of like Major League. Might be a little bit old for you young kids, but
I've seen the movies.
Major League 2, Charlie Sheen comes out, or Rick Vaughn comes out and says he's like, here's the Terminator and the Eliminator and the Incinerator and whatever else he called the pitches. They'll come up with some creative new names. They have the sweeper thing, which I think is just a modern day version of the slurve from a bunch of years ago. It's like, it kind of looks like a slider, but it doesn't break as much as a curveball, but it breaks more than a slider. And the velo is somewhere
it's an in-betweener.
But they're calling it a sweeper now, which is cooler than calling it a slurve. But everybody comes out of the bullpen throwing gas. Everybody that you see that's a starter is throwing gas, and the philosophy has really helped them. I mean, they've got guys that throw gas. You throw low to mid 90s, that's still pretty damn good. But the philosophy's worked a lot better than I thought. I would expect this team to be right around 500. Last I looked, I think they're like a game or a game and a half out of the third wild card spot and like 3 games out of the second wild card spot. The way things are trending, Baltimore seems to have a stranglehold on that second wild card spot. I think they're 8 games up or 9 games up or something like that. In the wild card race in general. So, they're a fringe playoff team, and we've seen crazy things happening. The D-backs get to the World Series last year as an 84-win team. They're the last seed in the NFC National League playoffs. So I mean, get in, see what you can do. I expect a little bit of the deadline, but I would expect this team to be kind of right around like low to mid 80s for wins, and right around the playoff bubble. Come October.
I almost just fell back in my chair, but yeah, JR, where are you at?
I really haven't been able to watch much of the Red Sox this year because they were always playing when I'm at work. So,
fair enough.
Other than the fact that I've just been hearing some things from a couple people that I'm in a group chat with that like Brian Bayo just hasn't looked too amazing recently.
Yeah, he had a decent game against Toronto, but I mean he's a little bit been up and down this year. Ben, you were pretty, spot on with overall. I think that they've played shake up and down for the most of the season. They've seemed to be playing some really good ball over the last week or so. It's interesting that we're starting to see some of these young guys shine, whether that's, Duran's becoming a full-time legit MLB player. Rafael is improving. Abreu is here. Hamilton is finding his footing here. Connor Wong is having a career year. Tanner
might be an all-star this year.
Yeah, Tanner Houck is having a career year. So you look at all these young guys. I made a joke today, like, maybe this was like the goddamn plan for the last 5 years, is to start building into what we're starting to see. I won't get into that realm of things too much, but in terms of this team altogether, they're playing some solid baseball. So, the next 4 or 5 weeks will really dictate what they do at the deadline. But look, man, if they're where they are right now, like if the deadline was tomorrow or the deadline was next week, I think we would be calling for them to buy. Will they buy? That's a whole different other topic. I think if I was a betting man right now, I would bet that they tiptoe the line, which is what they've done the last few years to varying degrees. But I think you could see them still trade Kenley, but then buy something else. I saw a couple of proposals recently of the idea of attaching Yoshida to Kenley and basically give them both away for free in order to get out of the rest of Yoshida's deal. I mean, maybe. The big difference for me is this team doesn't necessarily need prospects the way they used to. It was more sell because they need to rebuild. They have a shit ton of prospects already. Their hitting prospects is arguably the best hitting farm system in the league. From Teal, Mayer, Roman Anthony, Nick York, Christian Campbell is just shredding down in the minors this year. He was proposed to be the breakout guy this year, and he's showing it. And then you obviously, Perellis is down with Tommy John, so he's going to be out for a while. But Dick Fitz, my boy Dick Fitz, he's performing pretty well. Jojo Ingracia has been performing. He's been kind of the best lefty in the farm system for the Sox. They have a loaded hitting farm system coming up, and a good portion of these guys are going to be up within the next few years. So I don't know what they're going to do at the deadline. That I have genuinely no gut feeling of one way or another. It's just a matter of really how these next 6 weeks go. If they're game out,
Yoshida, send him to LA so Shohei can have another gambling buddy.
Yeah, I mean, maybe send him with Kenley and that type of deal. But like I said, they could do anything. I think if the deadline was tomorrow, they would have to be buyers to some extent. It would be such a punch in the face to be a game out, let's say on August 1st, and you sell. Like, that's a punch in the goddamn face to everybody in that roster. And so I think they would have to buy to an extent. I don't know if Breslow really wants to buy. I don't know if ownership really wants to buy. But it's kind of a wait and see. It's been a nice last week or two for this team, so we'll see how they play out. But as a whole, I'm just I'm trying not to get myself too high up on the idea of them buying. We don't know what Breslow is like at the deadline, but if the last few years have told us they won't have the money to buy a lot. They have a little bit of flexibility at the deadline and still stay under the tax, but they clearly aren't going over the tax this year. I believe they might have like 7 to 12 million under the tax, so they could buy, but not huge, not over the top. Nothing significant unless the other team is buying those guys down. So, we'll see how it plays out. But
I mean, my guess though is considering Sam Kennedy came out and said that they were going to have that their plan was to have a lower payroll this year than last year, I would imagine that they're probably not going to do much to add to their 2024 payroll, which
it's I think the limit is 225, and I want to say they might be at like 212, 213.
They're at 185.
No, yeah, but that's the
adjusted payroll is 181.9. Total payroll allocations 185.9. They're not over 200.
Boston Red Sox, and
that's on Spotrac.
I would let me pull up. Hold on, let me pull up Red Sox payrolls.
Numbers. That's just honestly a joke in itself. It's the Boston Red Sox, and they.
So Fangraphs has them at. Well, this is estimated.
They're at 223 million this year.
Says who?
Says Red Sox payroll on Twitter. He has like an account where he tracks it all to like the T.
I mean, I have a hard time believing that Spotrac would be $50 million off.
They don't track the other things. I'm telling you that this is definitely accurate because I knew that they were within like 12 to 13 from it. So like I don't know if you can. It's not going to show it. But,
I have it pulled up on. My work laptop is here.
Red Sox payroll on Twitter at the bottom says 2024 $223.75 million.
Where are you seeing this?
Are you on Red Sox payroll on Twitter?
Yep.
His pinned tweet, it says Sox prospects payroll page.
Oh, I didn't click the link.
It says they have 13.25 million under the tax right now. And that is, so that will, assuming prorated deals, because we'll be about 2/3 of the way through the season, that gives them the flexibility to theoretically add some notable pieces, but they can't go and add a guy that was making like 25 million this year comfortably.
All right. So real quick. So other costs that count towards the competitive balance tax, they're spending about $30 million on non-player payroll expenses. So
correct. Medical benefits, minor league costs,
so
future
my
bonuses.
Point is they're spending right now. They're spending $186 million on players, and the rest of it is not. That's so okay. So I was going off of what they're paying their players, not what they're paying out in benefits and other like incentives, minor leagues. Like that's like I get that counts towards the payroll, but what they're paying their players is well under what they're allowed to spend on players.
Correct, but in terms of the CBT tax, they have to go by what payroll is. So that's really the payrolls. Red Sox payroll is the only number that really matters when they factor it in the end. But hey, I mean, we'll see, and we can kind of wrap it up here. We'll see how things play out over the next 6 weeks. I would love to see them, play some solid ball and enforce ownership and force Breslow to make some type of decision. And I don't know what that decision will be, but they're playing better than we thought. So I think we're all kind of cautiously optimistic about the team the rest of the year. But at least they're bringing some excitement to Boston and what will be a kind of dull next few weeks at least, which is why this is the last episode of season 1 here for Isbin. We'll be back in mid to late July. But any final thoughts on Boston sports and altogether? Jerry, your like body is there. You go.
He's wearing an invisibility cloak. So final thoughts. So on one side of the coin, I think the future is bright in certain cases. You see, between what comes out on Teal and Mayer and Roman Anthony, among other guys, right? Like those are just the big guys. The big names they look like they're, coming along nicely. Expect to see them contributing. Depending on how the season goes, maybe we'll see, some of those guys like, the Nick Yorks or the Miguel Bleases of the world. Matthew Lugos, maybe their September call-ups for a late push possibly. And then of course, Patriots training camp, there seems to be, good reporting coming out of Pats camp every day about Drake May. We're going to speculate all summer long if he's going to, pull a Mac Jones and, win the job over the wily veteran, we'll call him. And so, I think it would be less shocking if he wins the job over Brissett than, I think we were genuinely shocked that Cam Newton got cut and Mac Jones won the job back in 2021. I don't think we'd be as surprised. I still don't think he's going to start week 1. But we've certainly got a lot to look forward to with that. Certainly some excitement there. We'll bask in the glory of the Celtics and hopefully, the Bees can make some noise, but, should be a fun summer. Looking forward to, getting back in the swing of things in a month or so. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about because I think training camp starts July. Next part of training camp, I think, is July 11th.
I'll be up for training camp. So
yeah, what's up?
I'm gonna be up there for training camp this year.
We'll have to do a live. We'll do a live podcast from one Patriot place.
I'm gonna be there in August. So.
All right. JR, any final thoughts?
Go Celtics. Go Bruins. Hopefully the Red Sox get their shit turned around, and Patriots. They're probably not gonna be that good this year, but it's gonna be fun to see how the actual talent that's been drafted fares.
Yeah. And if you believe WEEI, 0-17 is on the table.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Oh, man, if they lose week 1, a winless season's on the table. So
if they win week 1, the undefeated season's on the table.
Yeah, we'll see how that works. You guys are pretty spot on. This is the first time in the last couple of years I'm excited to see the training camp and for the Patriots season. Even if, I don't generally expect them to be like a playoff contender. I think, 4 to 7 wins is like their
This is the first time I've had zero expectations for the Patriots in so long.
Yeah, it's more because we all have the long-term approach in our head.
Yeah, I would argue my expectations are surrounded around player growth and player development because the team is really being built for 2025 and beyond. So hopefully
this is year 0. It's year 0 of a rebuild.
Right. It's almost like Tom Brady season 2021 where it was like, okay, Bledsoe goes down. We don't know what we have. Let's see what happens.
2021. That was
2001. I'm sorry. 2001 Tom Brady season, no expectations, right? Bledsoe goes down. You're like, oh God, what is this Brady kid going to give us? And obviously we caught lightning in a bottle and the rest is history, but that's kind of where I'm at. Minimal expectations outside of general player development of being better at the end of the year than they were at the beginning of the year.
I just want to see how this new offensive scheme is. I want to see how the defense, I know.
Yeah, that's why I'm excited for training camp and in preseasons. I'm genuine. There's so much uncertainty that it's fueled by a little bit of excitement and just seeing how they are. Obviously I probably led the charge, I guess, but we were all kind of Drake May stands of wanting him, and he's here. So, we're excited about the whole process. And then, for the Bruins, we'll see what they do in the offseason. Obviously, they got money to play around with and an asset in Ullmark. The Celtics are champions. The parade's tomorrow. They're gonna let you know it. Tatum hasn't shied away from that. And then the Red Sox, like we talked about, we'll see how things played out. They're playing a little bit better, and we'll be back mid to late July, and then at that point, training camp will be starting, and the trade deadline for the baseball will be coming up soon. So we'll have a loaded agenda when we get back in the next few weeks. I'm going on vacation, and so it'll be a nice month off.
Well, just a fun fact before we go, Drake May has seen more championships in better winning teams in Boston in less than 3 months of being a Patriot than we saw with Mac Jones his whole tenure. So Mac Jones was the Boston sports curse, and he's gone.
Yeah,
so.
Hey, he experienced. He saw a great Bruins playoff run, and then He saw an NBA championship, and he's seen the Red Sox.
Courtside too.
Battle. Yeah. So, all right, that's it for us tonight. Like I said, we're off for a few weeks, but we'll be back, and I got some things in store for season 2 of Raise the Banner. We appreciate you all for listening.
We're gonna be streaming from space.
Yeah, we'll still be active on Twitter and all that. But hey, until season 2, until mid to late July, take care and thanks for listening.
It's been real.
We'll talk to you guys.
Yeah.